we'll get that started. So if everybody's relatively comfortable, again, if you didn't hear me mention, if you feel any discomfort while you're meditating, feel free to move. Feel free to adjust your body. It's helpful to just get rid of the conflict in your body so that you can be peaceful. However you're positioned, it's helpful to have some symmetry in the body so that both sides of your body are doing about the same thing, so you don't have all your weight on one side or the other. So look for some symmetry in the body. If you're sitting, it's helpful to have your spine straight and vertical, but not stiff. Sometimes I share the image of if your sit bones and your legs were roots of a lotus flower burrowed into the sand of a pond. Your spine is the stem, your head is the lotus flower on the surface of the water, and that floating of the flower keeps your spine straight, but also there's an allowance for flexibility and fluidity with the current of the water. So you can straighten your spine in that way, be very fluid and relaxed. And tuck your chin forward. Again, if you're sitting, that'll take a little strain off your neck and off your back. And you can let your breath be completely natural. No need to alter it in any way. Breathe through your nose if possible. Otherwise, breathe however you need to be comfortable. And then probably the last thing is that we close our eyes while we meditate. And that's just to eliminate any of the visual distractions that might come up and kind of pull our minds away. So with eyes closed and bodies relaxed, I'm going to sound the meditation bell, and I'll begin to guide us through the practice. Just let yourself follow the sound of the bell into silence. Follow the bell into silence, and let the silence be a very welcoming invitation to turn your senses inward. Just allow the sounds of the street and of the dog. Let all those sounds just come and go through consciousness without holding on to any of them. Sometimes if we have a sound like that, like the dog barking, and we think, oh, this is a problem, then we'll discover tension in the body almost right away as a response. So part of meditation practice is making peace with whatever is happening in our surroundings. So just turn your senses inward, become aware of the sense of presence that you have in your own body. Let that sense of presence really fill your consciousness. And then with that sense of presence established, let's bring our awareness up to the top part of our head and to the area of the scalp. And for a few moments here, just let your awareness open up to any physical sensations in your scalp. Any naturally occurring physical sensations. So these would be things like temperature sensation. You may feel warm in here or cool. These could be sensations of air movement in the room. Sometimes there are sensations on the surface of the skin, like a tickle or an itch or a pulsation. So you're just opening up awareness to any naturally occurring sensation, and you're just observing. They come and go. They arise and pass away. and you just observe. And among those sensations in the scalp, if there's tension anywhere in the scalp, just let that go. And sometimes we discover there is tension even in the scalp. So let that leave the body, and then continue to observe the sensations in the scalp. Continue to observe. And then from the scalp, we'll allow the awareness to move downward a bit into the forehead. We'll let it pass down through the temples. Let it move through the eyebrows and into the eyes. And then we'll begin to just open up awareness to the sensations in these areas. Sensations of temperature, sensations of air movement, sensations on the surface of the skin. Just observing, noticing tension anywhere you might find it. You might notice that your brow is furrowed or your eyebrows are tight. Sometimes there's tightness in the temples. Sometimes you'll find your eyes are squinted a little bit. So just let the tension go, let it leave the body. We're not driving the tension out. We're just giving it free passage to leave the body because it's not needed at this time. And now from the temples, we'll begin to guide the awareness again down into the ears this time. Let the awareness move through the ears. Observe the sensations. And just repeat that process as I start to move us through the different parts of the body. Simply observe the sensations. Let the tension go if you notice any. So in the ears, observing sensation, letting tension go. Feel the awareness moving forward into the face. Feel it moving from the face through the cheekbones. And then from the eyes, feel the awareness drifting down through the bridge of the nose, through the lips and mouth and chin. Again, all you're doing is bringing awareness to these parts of the body and observing the physical sensations that become known. Temperature, air movement, tickles and itches and pulsations on the surface of the skin. And as we observe these, we can bring a degree of objectivity to the experience. We're not judging good feelings or bad. We're just experiencing what is there as it comes and goes. And then you can look throughout the face for tension that might be present. It's common to find tension in the jaws. Your teeth might be clenched or your lips might be pursed. So anywhere there's tension, just release. Let it leave the body. Allow yourself to be peaceful. Continue to observe the coming and going of sensations in the body. And now from the chin, we'll begin to move the awareness downward into the neck. We'll begin to explore the sensations in the neck, starting in the throat, looking for sensations there. Sometimes there's a tightness, the sides of the neck, moving to the back of the neck and the sensations there. If you're leaning against a chair or laying down, you might feel contact on your neck. Feeling of contact between your skin and the cushion or the chair. And any tension we notice in the neck, again, we just let it go. Tension is not an enemy. Tension is not a problem. It's just something we don't need right now, so we let it go. And then from the neck, We let the awareness drift downward into the shoulders. Let awareness move through the shoulders. Everywhere awareness moves, it's just illuminating natural sensations in the body. So in the shoulders, temperature, maybe there's the feeling of contact between your skin and your clothing, or contact between your shoulders and the chair or the cushion. So observing the sensations in the shoulders, we also notice and release any tension. So we let the shoulders drop if they're shrugged. Just let them be at ease. And from here, we can guide our awareness downward into the upper arms. And we'll observe the different parts of the upper arms, looking at the sensations. First in the biceps, any sensations here, letting tension go, then rotating inward to the inside surface of the upper arms. Again, just observing and releasing, rotating back to the triceps on the back part of the arms, observing. The result of observing is knowing. And then we let go of tension. So sometimes we use the phrase know and let go. Know and let go. And then we rotate outward to the outside surface of the upper arms, knowing, letting go. Feel the movement of awareness begin to drift through the elbows now. And if you pay close attention, you can actually feel the movement of awareness as it flows through the elbow joints and downward through the forearms now. You can feel the awareness moving through the forearms down toward the wrists. And again, your only task as we move is to notice the sensations objectively and just allow the tension to leave the body. And you find that with each movement of awareness, you become a bit more peaceful, a bit more stable and calm. Let the awareness flow through the wrists now. Feel it moving into the hands. And we'll pay attention to the different parts of the hands, the heels of the hands, and the sensations there. And then the palms of the hands. You might notice perspiration in the palms of the hands. We move around to the tops of the hands, and then to the fingers and thumbs. Just observing, being aware of those sensations, not trying to hold on to anything, not trying to push anything away. Any tension we come upon, our response is just to let go. It is a very soft and gentle releasing of tension with no animosity or ill will. And then let's finally move our awareness down into the very tips of the fingers and to the fingernails. And you may find that in this awareness that you've cultivated, this focused awareness, that you can detect some sensations even in your fingernails. Sometimes there's just a little vibration or a little pulsation. So we become aware. We're training the mind to become more and more focused on the areas that we focus it upon. And now from the fingernails, we're going to move our awareness up to the top of the chest. So maintain a continuity of awareness, and bringing your awareness to the collarbones, you can start to let it flow downward through the chest. And just feel it moving slowly through the tissues of the chest, all the way down to the base of the sternum, Remember, you're being very attentive to the sensations as you move through, and just releasing instantly and without question any tension you encounter. And then from the sternum, you can let the awareness flow outward through the rib cage, knowing, releasing. And then we'll make another move to the underarms, bringing awareness to the underarms and the sensations there. And just focus for a moment. Sometimes we can become aware of the touch of the fabric of our clothing, or sometimes there's perspiration or other sensations. We are allowing awareness to look at all sensations of the body equally, not avoiding any area, not overly focusing on any one, just being objective, moving through, releasing tension. Let the awareness drift downward through the sides of your body, all the way down to your waist. Feel that soothing movement of awareness. And then from your waist, you can bring your awareness forward into your belly and begin to observe the sensations of the belly as you sit or lay. Oftentimes there's a sensation of rising and falling in the belly with the breath. Sometimes there's a feeling of expansion and contraction. Sometimes a feeling of the skin moving against the fabric of your clothing. So just observe with objectivity. Let any tension in your belly go. Just let it leave the body unconditionally. Let your belly be free and relaxed. And then from the belly, we'll make another move, this time around to the top of the back. So we can start at the base of the neck and let the awareness flow downward a bit through the shoulder blades, through the upper third of the back, observing sensations. Here you'll probably feel contact in some way. You might feel the sensation of your clothing. Sometimes there are sensations in the body of fatigue, or you might notice a bit of discomfort in the muscles of the back. It's okay to have these difficult or unpleasant sensations. The key is in how we react to them. Just allow these sensations to be as they are. You'll find that in the spaciousness of your awareness, that you can let them be, and that you can let your awareness flow through and still let go of tension in the body. Just allow as much space as difficult sensations need for them to be, without resistance, without aversion. You can move the awareness downward to the middle third of the back. And again, just really try to feel that movement of awareness. There is a soothing quality to the movement of our own awareness. It brings a stability and a calm to the body everywhere it moves. And sometimes that stability and calm results in a feeling of joyfulness or a feeling of happiness. Now we let our awareness flow to the lower part of the back, observing, releasing, allowing extra space for any unpleasant sensation, generating no aversion, allowing tension to go, setting ourselves free with each moment of awareness. And then we can guide our awareness downward into the sit bones, Feel it moving through the hips and throughout the pelvis. So now in all of these areas, just observe sensation. Sensations of contact and bearing weight, any other sensations. Let the tension go in the sit bones and the hips and the pelvis. And then from here, we'll guide the awareness downward into the thighs. We'll spend a moment just observing the top surface of the thighs. Sensations there, releasing tension, then rotating outward to the outer surface of the thighs. Again, observing sensation and just letting go. No judgment, no intellectual activity, just experience and release. And then move the awareness to the underside of the thighs, from the tops all the way to the knees, observing and releasing. And then moving to the inside part of the thighs, from the tops down to the knees, observing, releasing tension, letting go, becoming aware of the ever-increasing stability and peacefulness in the body. From the thighs now, we begin to move the awareness downward through the knee joints. And this is another place in the body where many people feel discomfort. So we respond to feelings of discomfort with acceptance, with openness, and with a more expansive awareness. Just allowing the sensations to be as they are without any mental interference. And then we let the awareness flow down from the knees into the calves. Remain attentive to the sensations as you continue to move through the body. Observe the shins and be aware as the awareness moves downward toward the ankles. And feel the awareness moving through the ankles down into the feet now. And spend a moment just feeling the heels. The sensations of the heels. There's sort of the latent sensations of contact in the heels from standing or walking today. Moving further into the soles of the feet, we observe the sensations. Also in the balls of the feet. And continuously we just release tension. Sometimes in places where we think there isn't tension, just release it anyway. Just release it anyway, and you'll find even greater peacefulness. Then we move to the tops of the feet and slowly downward toward the toes, observing, accepting, letting go, and bringing awareness into the toenails. Just like the fingernails before, just spend a little time observing. Focusing awareness on the toenails. Are there any sensations? And if you feel no sensations, that's just fine. Whatever you feel is okay. Whatever you don't feel is okay. But now from the tips of the toes, once again, we're going to bring our awareness back up to the top of the head. Once again to the scalp. But this time at your own pace, just start to guide your awareness back down through your head and face and body. So you can do it more quickly if you'd like to, or you can continue to do it slowly as we did together. But try to guide the awareness through each part, one by one, spending at least a moment of awareness, at least a moment of mindfulness. Be aware of the sensations, be aware of the tension. One of the things we discover as we start moving through the body again is that there are places where we let go of the tension a few minutes ago, and now it's returned in some way. Maybe we let the jaws relax, and we're finding now that the teeth are clenched once again. Or maybe we let the shoulders drop, and now we're noticing that they're shrugged a little bit. Or maybe the belly is tight, or each of us hold tension in different ways. But what we know from the practice is that tension appears in the body because of emotional stimulus. So you're going through the day and something happens that upsets you, and you react by holding tension in the body. We tighten up reflexively. Something happens, makes you angry, you hold tension in the body, you tighten up reflexively. You think about something that you're kind of dreading, and the body tenses up somewhere reflexively. And so then, even after these thoughts in the mind have dissipated, or we've moved on to different thoughts, the tension in the body remains. And it reappears, it remanifests habitually. It has become a habit energy in the body. And so each time that tension reappears, it is recreating the emotional difficulty, the anger, the fear, the worry that caused it in the first place. So these emotional reactions cause tension, and the tension causes the emotional reactions. So in this process of observing, accepting, releasing, we begin to change the habit pattern of the mind and body to let go of this tension that replays these difficult emotions. So once you've had a chance to move your awareness through your body, releasing the tension and observing sensation, let's all bring our awareness together up to the base of the nose and to the little patch of skin beneath the nostrils and above the upper lip. Let's just focus there for a moment, focusing the awareness on this one part of the body. And then we can expand the awareness just a bit further to include the rings of the nostrils. And then we'll expand the awareness just a bit further to include the nasal passages. So now you can imagine this triangular area of the nose where we have our awareness focused. And we're focusing the awareness on respiration. As you breathe in, just be aware that you're breathing in with awareness focused in this triangular area of the nose. And as you breathe out, just be aware that you're breathing out. So breathing in, you're aware that you're breathing in. Breathing out, you're aware that you're breathing out. Sometimes as you breathe in, you'll notice the breath is short. Sometimes the breath is long. As you observe the movement of the breath, try to stay with it for its full duration. So you're not just touching it and leaving it, but you're remaining with it. The in-breath as it begins, as it slows and pauses, then it reverses direction, becomes the out-breath. And with our continuity of awareness, we observe the out-breath as it begins, and then it slows and pauses, and it becomes the next in-breath. So over and over, we just observe each breath cycle. Breathing in, we know that we are breathing in. Breathing out, we know that we are breathing out. Breathing in a long breath, we know we're breathing in a long breath. Breathing out a short breath, we know that we're breathing out a short breath. And as you remain focused on the breath, open up your awareness to the feeling of touch, the touch of the breath, anywhere within the triangular area of the nose. If you observe, you'll find that as air moves in and out, there is a very subtle feeling of touch. So observe that feeling of touch. And then as you observe the feeling of touch, allow your awareness to become even more sensitive to the subtle sensations. You might notice sensations of coolness as you breathe in, compared to the feeling of warmness as you breathe out. Or breathing in, the air feels a little drier. Breathing out, the air feels a little more moist. So we're observing the different sensations of the breath, the touch of the breath and the movement of the breath. And this is how we remain focused here in this way. Focused on the breath, staying within the triangular area of the nose. And as we observe, from time to time, distractions will arise. And these distractions will pull the awareness away from the nose and the breath. And oftentimes that'll happen as sounds. We'll hear a sound outside or in the room. And for a moment the mind moves to the sound and we might think about it. But in the very moment that you notice that distraction and that your mind has moved, simply guide the awareness back to the breath. Return to the movement of the breath and the touch and sensations of the breath. And you find that in doing this, the distraction just goes away. It just fades away. We release it. And sometimes distractions come up as strong physical sensations. Sometimes there's an itch or a tickle or a feeling of antsiness. And then we notice, awareness has moved away from the breath and is focused on these sensations. And so to this we respond by simply guiding the awareness back to the breath. Just return to the breath, reestablish awareness, focus once more, remain with the movement and touch and sensations of the breath. And sometimes as you observe, you'll find distractions come up in a third way, which is just the mind wandering in thought, remembering or imagining. So again, when you notice this distraction, noticing distractions is a wonderful and important part of the practice. It means we're paying attention, and when we notice a distraction, we guide awareness back to the breath, back to the nose. We reestablish that awareness, and we let go of the distraction without creating any sort of animosity or ill will or negativity. So this is the practice of breathing meditation. Staying with the breath, letting it focus you deeper and deeper, letting it keep you stable, calm, and balanced. And let's just share a few minutes together in silent meditation now, following the breath, staying with the breath, returning as often as you need to. And in a few minutes I'll sound the bell to end the meditation. And take your time coming out of the meditation, bringing your awareness back to the room. Sometimes it's helpful to stretch out your limbs a little bit, or you might want to stand up. Stretch, move, be gentle. We'll take about a minute break here. There is tea in the kitchen if anybody wants tea, or just water. But there's an air pot in there, so if you want tea, help yourself. Joni, I'm not sure if I put the sugar out in there. Do you see it? It is. Okay, good. Oh, you don't see it.
I got through you. I got backup.
You got backup. The it's the second cabinet to the right of the sink is where you'd find that. So we'll give it a minute. How's everybody feeling? Kind of chilled out? That's good. I think everyone stayed awake. I didn't hear any snoring. So, yeah, it can be tough. But it can also be tough to just stay with, wherever the guidance is taking you, to really stay focused on that part of the body. But there's a few things we discover in this meditation. The first is that we tend to hold a lot of tension in the body in places that we really aren't even aware of it. And so when we move through systematically, we find it. And sometimes just these tiny places, the jaws, the belly, the shoulders, the fingers for some people, the feet, there's everyone holds tension in different places. But it really is a result of, something happens, stresses you out, you tense up. Something happens, it stresses you out, you tense up. And then life goes on, the day progresses, but that tension remains, and you sort of have that, there's like this background hum of kind of negativity. You feel a little uptight, not sure why. So going through releasing that tension systematically over and over, we start to break that habit of holding tension. And so the body just feels like a much more stable and peaceful place, which is good. It becomes a place of refuge that is available to us at all times. And so we start to establish that very important part of the practice. So, any questions on the meditation? Comments? This is the practice that we do each week, pretty much the same. This is the practice that I do every day. And I've been doing this for many, many years. The power of this simple meditation practice is just amazing. So everybody should have a handout for tonight. And we'll reference that a little bit. We'll talk about it.
Lights behind you. I don't know if you're doing want the light on.
Yeah, feel free to adjust the lights however you'd like. And as we go through this, if you have any questions, comments, anything you'd like to share, just bring it up. It makes it wonderful. So tonight what I wanted to do is talk about, this is kind of a continuation in a series, but I wanted to talk about finding peace and balance in the face of difficult emotions. To start with, there's this interesting teaching in the Pali Canon, which is where all this stuff that we work with every Tuesday, where it comes from. So this is 2,600-year-old material, but it is absolutely right on the money for what we're dealing with in our lives today. So it's so fun to look at this and know that it's that old, but also know that, wow, this is powerful stuff. So there's this threefold training of skillful action. What this is designed to do is kind of get us out of our own way. For a lot of us, we find that the problems that we experience or the stress that we have in our interpersonal relationships or the problems that we're having are the result of what are called unskillful actions. So our actions in the practice are looked at like something a person who does pottery might do, or something an artist might do, or someone who makes something might do. There's a skillful way that people can perform, and then there's an unskillful way. And so what we're moving towards is a skillful way of actually going through the day and living our lives. So this threefold training of skillful action, I find it really interesting and really helpful. The first one is abstain from performing any action, whether at the physical or vocal level, that hurts or harms another person. One of the reasons that is so important is, for one thing, it's ethical behavior. So there's just a belief that many of us have that we should treat each other with kindness and compassion. But if you, let's say you holler at somebody or you do something that harms another person, you're left with the negative energy of that. And so your own peacefulness, your own equanimity, your own balance is going to be disturbed by those unwholesome actions or those unwholesome words. So abstain from performing any action, whether at the physical or vocal level, that hurts or harms another person. So pretty simple. Perform only those actions, whether physical or vocal, that help or bring benefit to others. So this is an interesting one, because I think most of us would probably say most of the time we're not really doing anything that's hurting or harming anybody. You know, we're usually not hollering at anybody or hurting anybody in any way. But how often are the actions or the words that we perform, how often are those just focused on helping or bringing benefit to others? You know, sometimes we say things just to kind of stir things up, just to get a reaction out of other people, just to see if they feel angry about something the way we feel. But acting in those ways also disrupts our own natural balance and our own peacefulness. So it's helpful to look at our actions as, is this helping anybody? Is this helping to educate or bring benefit or to just help another person make it through the day? And so we perform only those actions that meet that qualification. And then the third one is purify your mind by cultivating compassion, loving kindness, appreciative joy, and equanimity. So this threefold training of skillful action is all about purification. You're just getting all the junk out of the way in your own life. You're eliminating the things that are going to cause you to suffer, that are going to cause others to suffer, which will come back and cause you to suffer. You're doing things that help others, and so there's that positive aspect. And then you're purifying your own mind, purifying your mind from any negativities. So negativities like anger, ill will, greed, aversion. You're purifying the mind by cultivating, you're displacing negative emotions by cultivating compassion. In this sense, compassion is looking at the suffering that another person experiences, someone who is not you, looking at that suffering that they experience and seeing that as just as important as your own suffering. So there's no distinction there. The suffering of this person here, just as important and real as my own suffering, and it should be looked at as just as important and real. And if you could imagine if politicians, for example, would use that one rule, how different things would be. The next is to cultivate loving kindness. So this is just a walking around with just a sense of goodwill towards others. And we've all had the opposite state, which is to walk around with a little bit of anger and a little bit of ill will, and we're in a hurry and we're in the supermarket and people are kind of slowing us down and we're bumping into others, and a little bit of ill will generates. We'll see someone and we just don't quite like the way they look, and so a little bit of ill will generates, right? And so even though we're mature, we're good people, this is the way the mind operates. This is the way it still happens. So to be aware, we're cultivating loving kindness, or we're cultivating goodwill. The next is appreciative joy. Most of the time, we see good things that happen in our own lives or in our close circle as being reasons to be joyful. But if we look at it, we can see that the experiences that other people have of joyfulness can be our experiences too. And I've talked a lot about this. Just I sometimes see an older couple that takes walks together out here, and they hold hands. And so I see that, and that's not my experience, but I see it, and I can take that on as a source of joy for myself. Or I see some kids laughing and playing. And now I'm not laughing and playing, but I see them doing it, and I just take that on as joy for myself. So this appreciative joy. Sometimes I use the ultimate standard as if your coworker could win the lottery, and you could be as happy for them as you would be if you won the lottery, then you've pretty much mastered this appreciative joy. So that might be a difficult one, but it's possible. And then the last one there is equanimity. To cultivate equanimity. This is peacefulness and balance, especially when things are difficult. Equanimity when the dog is barking without letting that make a person mad. But this type of equanimity comes as a result of not having attachment, not feeling this craving and aversion that so often makes us feel out of whack and out of balance. So those are the threefold training for skillful action, and they're a way of purifying. So very powerful. We talk about different things that we can do in the morning just to kind of get ourselves set for the day. Sometimes doing a little meta loving kindness practice. We've talked about that in the past. But doing this, just going through this is my goal for today. Abstain from performing unwholesome actions, perform wholesome actions, purify the mind. Work on those three things over and over. Your day will be remarkably improved, joyful, wonderful. People will come to you in a way that's different from what you're used to. You'll suddenly find people opening up to you. You'll find yourself experiencing more opportunities to help others. It just sets this wonderful wheel in motion. And it really does. This isn't just like, neat stuff from a book that, wouldn't it be cool if it really was this way? But it's like, no, this really is this way. If you do this, it really does happen. I often share the phrase, this moment of consciousness sets the stage for the next moment of consciousness. So if you think about that, on one hand, it makes this moment of consciousness very important. No moment of consciousness is wasted when we bring awareness to it. Because say this moment of consciousness, let's just say there is restlessness. Well, if you become aware of that and you say, well, I'm going to calm my body and mind intentionally, the next moment of consciousness has changed dramatically. If we don't pay attention, we might feel restless. We move into the next moment of consciousness and feel a little angry, a little bit grumpy, a little bit uptight. So This moment of consciousness sets the stage for the next moment of consciousness. It shows you how important each and every moment is. And this is going on the assumption that our ultimate goal is to just be free from suffering. What we're looking for is a happiness, a sustainable happiness that isn't reliant on everything going right all the time, because that seldom happens. It's a happiness that exists in the face of difficulty. So this is a wonderful type of happiness to be cultivating.
Excuse me, Ken.
Yes.
When you say consciousness, are you meaning thought? Or could you elaborate a little bit on, I mean, is this moment of consciousness, is this moment of thought or emotion or?
Yeah, well, what you could say is you could also substitute the word cognition.
Okay.
So you could say this moment of cognition. So you're cognizing whatever is coming in through the senses, right? So that's how we cognize. So sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and then we add the sixth type of cognition, which is thought. So this moment of cognition sets the stage for the next moment of cognition. So if we're surrounded by, ugly stuff, things that are very negative, lots of negative conversation, hateful people, things like that, that moment of cognition, you're experiencing all that, it's pretty hard to move into the next one with peacefulness and, acceptance and love. So just being aware, this moment of consciousness, how do I want the next one to be? How are you guys doing with the dog?
Fine.
Okay.
I feel bad for her though.
And
There's something going on.
she had more to say before we went up there, and
You had some more.
This is a first.
yeah,
She never barked.
She's never.
yeah,
She doesn't want to miss the party.
yeah,
But she's
What?
she's never
She doesn't
done
want to
this
miss the
with
party. I know.
yeah. Well, we'll find out once we're done. I'll let her down here, and we can ask her what's on her mind. So, setting the stage for consciousness. I mean, if you want to run up there and let her out,
Do you have to carry her downstairs?
you don't have to carry her down. No, just go up and open. She's in her crate.
Okay.
So,
Great.
Yeah.
yeah.
She always in her crate?
I put her in her crate during the class. Yeah. So, yeah, feel free. You'll find it. Might take you a while.
No, I don't think so. Just follow your ears. Good.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Ken. I was like, I'm not worried about her. Why is she, it's
She
Yeah.
just never had done that, ever.
Yeah.
right. And then and me
Did you give her a cookie?
Yep,
Okay.
I did.
She's not a peaceful protester.
No, I gave her an Alpo snap, so
Yeah.
she was pretty happy when she went in there. But, well, in a way, that's kind of a beneficial thing to have happened in the beginning of our meditation, because
Yeah.
it puts you right there in the, sounds distracting me can make me uptight during the meditation.
Were you in the puppy jail?
She was.
Okay, we call her.
That's what we say in our.
Yeah,
Happy to see ya.
she was in the
Well, she
puppy
was,
jail.
she stopped talking to her.
Times.
Like,
Oh.
hey, Missy.
Aw,
Missing the party.
she appreciated that.
Stuff.
She appreciated that. So again, just that moment of consciousness, setting the stage for the next moment of consciousness. Hi, sweetie. It reminds us to be careful not to behave in ways that will make our own lives more difficult. And on the other, it reminds us that we're never stuck in difficulties indefinitely. So it's a really helpful thing to be aware of. And this isn't like a moralistic thing where we're trying to follow these rules to escape punishment, but in a very real way, this is just staying out of our own way. We're kind of clearing the path so that our next set of steps isn't going to be as difficult as it could be. So that's one of the things mindfulness helps us with. We have the power to transform our own lives away from suffering and toward real peace and happiness. And the more active role we take in that, the more we're willing to take part in our own salvation, I put that in quotes, the quicker and more profound and positive the results will be. There's a neat quote by the Buddha who said, and these were attributed, or these are said to be his last words. He said, "Continue to work out your own salvation with diligence." Continue to work out your own salvation with diligence. And so what he was talking about is, it's up to you to make sure that your life is free from suffering. It's not something you can count on somebody else to fix for you. So it puts the responsibility on us, but in a very wonderful way, it means that we can make progress here and now. So wherever we are on the path, we're only one step away from making progress toward that goal of living a happy life, free from suffering. But because we've all lived a portion of our lives acting out of ignorance, not knowing the truth about the Dhamma and the teachings, we've set in motion a variety of events and circumstances that we're either going to need to let them play themselves out, or we're going to need to unwind them. So it's important to know that. Sometimes we'll start to practice and bad stuff is still happening. Things still, relationships are still damaged. There are still problems that we're experiencing. Well, we've set a lot of stuff into motion over the course of our lives. So even if we start to follow that threefold skillful action training today, 100%, we're still going to have the stuff that, the seeds that were planted yesterday and the day before and the day before, we're still going to have to deal with those as they bear fruit. So it's important to be aware of that. And that just helps us to also accept it and to be patient with it. That it's going to take a little time, but it will work. So it's helpful to know with what we're dealing with on the unskillful side of the equation. The skillful is the threefold training. On the unskillful side of the equation, we have what are called the three root kilesas, namely greed, ill will, and delusion. I mentioned those in the very beginning tonight, and that those are things that we can look at to see if we're holding those in our minds and in our hearts. And if we are, those are things we can look to let go of. That word kilesa is a Pali word meaning afflictive emotions or afflictive mind states. And while there are three main kilesas, there are many variations, including mental states like fear or hatred or jealousy or anxiety, right? Feelings that we all have from time to time. That's just part of being a human being. And all kilesas result in the experience of what is called dukkha, the Pali word that means dis-ease, unsatisfactoriness, stressfulness, and suffering. So according to the Pali Canon, dukkha, that suffering, is caused by craving, clinging, and ignorance. We often refer to those three things collectively as attachment. So what I'm working towards here is kind of a simple formula that there is suffering. Suffering has a cause that can be identified. If we can identify the cause, we can remove the cause, and then the result is that suffering ceases. So this is a very matter-of-fact teaching, and it's very helpful because you'll see the results of it right away. So the next question is that many people have is, what is attachment? So to define it, attachment is the belief that obtaining or possessing a certain thing, whether it's a physical object or a state of consciousness, will lead to long-term happiness, well-being, and lasting satisfaction. But it's a belief in such a way or to such a degree that the loss or change of that object or even the contemplation of the loss or change of that object will lead to suffering now or in the future. So we aren't here to judge whether it's right or wrong to be attached to something, but what we do need to recognize is that attachment leads to suffering, while non-attachment leads to equanimity. Okay, so there's the definition. So the problem is suffering, dukkha. The cause of suffering is attachment. We have the definition of attachment. If we let go of our attachments, the suffering caused by those attachments also goes away. And we're not judging right or wrong, because invariably that comes up. People say, well, what about my partner? You know, I love my partner. I'm very attached to my partner. Are you telling me that I should just not be attached to my partner? And the thing is we're not saying to be attached or non-attached to anything. You have to decide, but you just know that attachment leads to suffering. So there's a whole lot of stuff that's maybe worth being attached to. Partners, good things that are happening in your lives, friends, things like that, children. But then there's other things that are pretty easy to let go of. You know, like am I overly attached to my physical appearance? And if I am, if there's any of that I can let go of, then that's less suffering that I experience. If I'm overly attached to how others perceive me, I'll be judging myself by that measure. That's attachment, and I'll suffer as a result. If I can, with wisdom, look at that and realize, yeah, that's one of the ways I'm causing myself to suffer, I can let go of that attachment and feel that much better. So you don't have to worry about letting go of attachment to the people that you love, but you might start to look at the way you love them and the attachment that's involved in that, and actually be able to let go of some of that and replace it with a more wholesome type of love and connection with that person. Because sometimes you can have a relationship where there's a lot of possessiveness or sort of a greediness for the other person's time. And if you don't feel like you're getting it quite the way you want it, you can feel a little angry or upset or jealous. So sometimes by just starting with some of these smaller, more peripheral things, we can see, oh yeah, there is even attachment in my relationships to my very important people, but maybe I can clean those up a little bit. Maybe I can get rid of the greediness, or maybe I can get rid of the jealousy, and then there's just, pure happiness.
Like maybe with your children that you love,
Yeah.
people say unconditionally, but that isn't always necessarily true.
Mm-hmm.
That if they don't meet certain conditions, if they're not the right kind of student, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they don't take the path that you think that they should take, or
Mm-hmm.
look a certain way, or act a certain way, or, I mean, it's, you just gotta let them be the way they are.
Yeah.
And not being attached to the outcome, or attached to your own ego about, like if they do something, sometimes it's more about, you take it as a reflection of you.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of allowing them,
Yeah.
and, I mean,
Yep.
it's different when they're younger, but when they're older, I mean,
Yeah.
you'll,
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Yeah. Thank you for that. So again, we're not judging right or wrong on attachment. We're just noticing attachment causes me to feel dis-ease. Attachment causes me to feel stress and anxiety. Anywhere I can let go of attachments easily, I should look for those and let them go. And then in the more complicated places, well, then that's where my work lies. I need to figure out how it is I can purify my relationships. The love without the attachment. And that can happen. So what becomes apparent to the meditator is that dukkha, again this word for suffering or dis-ease, ceases when the attachment ceases. And that's the good news. So there's a way to be free from that suffering, and that freedom results in the experience of real peace and joy. So what we've done is just, again, set up this system that there is this thing called dukkha, it's suffering. We all experience suffering in different ways, in different intensities, it shows up at different times, but this suffering is all around attachment. It's all around wanting things to be different than they are. I put a post on Facebook this morning saying something along the lines of, if you can't be happy where you are, you won't be happy when you get where you're going. You know, if this doesn't do it, the problem is not being able to accept where you are and to be happy with what you have. So we know that we have this suffering. We know the suffering is caused by attachment. We know what is causing the attachment, and that if we let go of any amount of it, we become freer and freer and freer. There was an article, maybe it was a book, and Cheryl, I think you read it, 10% Happier. Is that, you familiar with that? It was a book done by a journalist who went to a long-term meditation retreat and then began to practice meditation as taught by the teacher. And it's actually the same organization that, yeah.
Does Lucy do
Digging
that a
for
lot?
truffles or something.
She is just very,
Does she do that a lot, Ken?
the reverse sneezes? No, not too
Reverse
often. I
sneezes.
mean, from time to time. Hay fever season. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of dusting too, so might be stirring something up.
Oh, well, there might be a lot of smells in this room.
Yeah, a lot going
I
on.
think the incense is a lot stronger tonight. I don't know if anybody else knows that.
Oh, that could be, yeah, so, yeah, but she's doing good. She's doing good. So we're just aware of this process that's taking place. And the important thing is to look at it without judging it. It's none of it is saying, oh, you're a bad person or a failure or anything like that. It's just saying we have this behavior pattern in our lives, and we repeat it over and over, and it produces pretty predictable results over and over.
Is that what you're saying about the guy?
Oh, yeah. So this guy, the 10% Happier guy, essentially that's what he came up with was he didn't have to try very hard to let go of his attachment to about 10% of the stuff. So he could hang on to 90% of his attachment, but he could let go of 10% of it, and he found that he was 10% happier. And so to be 10% happier is like a big deal, you know? Because if somebody said, hey, you know, take this pill and you'll be 10% happier, we'd probably do it, right? So just the idea, yeah, letting go of 10% of my attachments, I'll be 10% happier. So you don't have to worry about letting go of all of them or navigating through this really complex maze of all this, you know, psychology structure stuff. It's just let go of the easiest, obvious stuff now. And when you do that, you'll start to see how some of the more complicated aspects of attachment are manifesting in your life, and you'll be able to let go of those easier, because you'll see that this works and you'll have some confidence. I'm going to put a bookmark here because we're close to the end of our time. And as always, I want to try and be respectful. So next week, we're going to pick up on the who gets attached. There's this process called ahankara and mamankara in Pali, and that is the process of I-making and mine-making. And this is really where we start to create attachments that cause us to suffer. Because the more there is an I or a mine or a me involved in this, the more suffering there is. So we'll start to talk about that next week. I had a couple of things I just wanted to announce before we end here. I started the depression class last week. It is Wednesday at 6:30. If you didn't make it last week and you're still interested in attending, you can still do it. But so far, it seems to be a very helpful class. So we're focusing just on depression management techniques. And then next Monday, I'm starting a 4-part intro series here, Introduction to Meditation and Mindfulness. So it's going to be just starting from square one, very basic. So if you know anyone or would be interested yourself, you can attend that. So that'll start next Monday at 7 p.m., 7 to 8:30, and it will run for 4 consecutive Mondays. And then the depression class, we have 3 remaining Wednesdays. And then we'll be working to some more towards some more programs as well. And then just to mention, the box in the community room, it says donations. That's the Donna box. Anything you care to give as a donation is helpful. We're to the point now where the center is just operating on the generosity of people who come and to people who are paying fees for classes. So if you're able to give, that's wonderful. If you're not, that's also wonderful. The most important thing is that you just continue to show up, because this is going to help you. So before we leave, I want to cultivate a little bit of those 4 states of consciousness together that I talked about in the very beginning. So that was the stuff we talked about on page 1. Purify your mind by cultivating compassion, loving kindness, appreciative joy, and equanimity. And boy, oh boy, does this work. This was one of the first practices that I made a conscious decision not to do. It was back when I was still in the business world, and I thought, hey, I just want to be able to relax. I want to be able to let go of my stress. I want to be able to focus my mind. I want to use meditation like one of those, ninja warriors who can focus. And so I thought compassion, loving kindness, appreciative joy, and equanimity really had no place in my life. So I decided to just, leave those out. What I discovered over time when I began to practice them is that makes all the difference in the world. These are really the most important states of consciousness. These are the most important things that we as humans can do. So to cultivate these, just by generating the feeling in our hearts and minds and really feeling it, it's life-changing. So together, let's do that. So you just close your eyes in these last 2 minutes that we're together here tonight. And we'll become aware maybe just of our own suffering, the experiences that you've had in your life. Each one of us have had wonderful things happen, but we've all experienced tremendous suffering. The loss of people pass away. There's loss of things we loved, or loss of things that gave us a sense of stability or continuity. We've been hurt and betrayed, and so there's great suffering that we experience in our lives from that. And we realize, everyone else feels the same things. Everyone else experiences that same type of pain. And so we say, in regard to this compassion, may all beings be free from suffering, and may all beings be free from the causes of suffering. So we use the feeling in our own heart, and we use that to cultivate this compassion for others. So just really feel that. And then the second one is, may all beings, and that's us included, may all beings be surrounded by real love and kindness. Real love and kindness. And may all beings be joyful and happy. All beings, joyful and happy. May all beings be equanimous, which means balanced and peaceful and free, but also free from the attachments that cause the suffering that we experience. And then may all of you who are sharing this room, sharing this space and time, I'm so grateful for your presence here tonight. May all of you be free from suffering and truly, truly happy. Can you?
Uh-huh.
It really
Yeah.
resonates.
I just love that when you do that.
It really resonates. Yeah, it's a beautiful bell. So I hope to see everybody next week. We'll pick up where we left off. We'll keep talking about this wonderful topic and the ways that it can set us free.
Thank you, kid.
Thank you. And yeah, we'll have to figure out how to deal with the Lucy situation next week.
I know.
That is
all
weird.
or not.
She's
Yeah, feel free.
She's never done that, isn't that strange?
Yeah. What's on your mind?
New people.
Huh? What's on your mind? Hmm?
Where's she going so fast?
What's trouble? Hmm? Something? Something?
Oh, I like the boot up on the little table that rather lean down.
Where was he before?
Yeah. He was a little lower.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another part of the Cheryl Betcher collection.